was pouring fresh coffee into my favorite mug when my phone buzzed against the kitchen counter. It was a notification from Instagram. It was from Mrs. Bennett, our elderly neighbor from my childhood home. My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't heard from anyone connected to my past in years. Just seeing her name on my screen unleashed a flood of memories I thought I'd buried deep beneath my carefully constructed new life. The message was brief and jarring. No greeting, no context, just one disturbing line: "I'm so sorry about your parents, Eliza. I can't believe what I saw on their live stream today." My stomach clenched into a tight knot. I tapped on the link with trembling fingers. It was a live video from the Grand Ballroom at the Westbrook Hotel, the same place where my parents hosted charity galas when I was growing up. The camera panned slowly across the elegantly decorated room before focusing on two familiar figures standing at a podium: my parents. My mother, Patricia, dressed in designer black with pearls gleaming at her throat, dabbing at dry eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. My father, Richard, looking stiff and solemn in his custom suit, reading from a paper with perfectly steady hands. Behind them stood a large portrait easel, and displayed on it was my photograph, ornately framed, with elaborate flower arrangements surrounding it. I froze in disbelief. No. This can't be happening. My father's voice resonated through my phone speakers. She was always a troubled girl, but we loved her deeply. We did everything possible to help her. My vision blurred with shock. He was reading my eulogy. My own obituary. "Though she left this world far too young, we pray Eliza's restless soul finally finds the peace she never found in life," my father said. What? I wasn't dead. I was standing in my apartment, heart pounding, breathing ragged, hands shaking uncontrollably. This had to be some kind of sick joke. I rewound the live stream, played it again and again. Their expressions never wavered. Their voices never cracked with genuine grief. Everything about them was calm, controlled, perfectly rehearsed. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter so hard my knuckles turned white. What the hell is going on? I whispered, my voice breaking with fear and confusion. Why would they do something this twisted? I hadn't spoken to my parents in years, not since they cut me out of their lives like I was nothing but an embarrassing stain on the Harmon family reputation. But to hold a memorial service? To declare me dead? The longer I watched, the more numb I felt. My mother spoke tearfully about my tragic accident while traveling abroad. There was no accident. My father solemnly described my final years spent in isolation and despair. I was working, building a career, creating a life for myself. They had to know that. So why? Why this elaborate charade? I sank onto my couch, the live stream still playing. The camera eventually panned across the gathering of mourners, including distant relatives, family friends, business associates, even my childhood piano teacher Mrs. Calloway. All of them dressed in expensive black, dabbing at tears, murmuring condolences, truly believing I was gone forever. And not one of them, not a single person, had tried to reach me directly. I replayed the video one more time, scrutinizing every detail to confirm I wasn't hallucinating. But the truth was undeniable. They hadn't just disowned me or erased me from family photos. They had literally buried me in a ceremony of lies. And in that moment, one fact became crystal clear: this wasn't some misunderstanding or mistake. This was a calculated, deliberate choice. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when I believed family meant protection, loyalty, unconditional love. That beautiful illusion shattered completely 3 years ago, the day I was thrown out of my own life like worthless garbage swept hastily under an expensive rug. The truth still burns in my chest every time I think about it. It wasn't me who stole the company funds. It was Vanessa, my younger sister, the golden child of the Harmon family, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. She embezzled nearly $250,000 from our family's real estate development company's investor accounts. She was reckless and entitled, addicted to a lavish lifestyle she couldn't maintain even with her generous allowance. When the financial discrepancies were discovered and the accounting records revealed the truth, my parents needed someone to blame, and I was standing right there, conveniently expendable. I still feel the icy chill of that moment in our marble kitchen when my mother hissed between perfectly whitened teeth, "Better one ruined daughter than two." My father, Richard Harmon, respected businessman and community leader, didn't even look me in the eyes when he delivered his verdict. "You've humiliated us beyond forgiveness, Eliza. You are no longer our daughter," he said. The next morning, I was simply gone from the Harmon family narrative. No financial support, no explanation to our social circle, just a deafening silence where my existence had been. I called repeatedly, sent desperate texts, even mailed handwritten letters begging for a conversation. Nothing came back. My number was blocked on every family device. When I reached out to close family friends, people I'd known my entire life, they suddenly became unreachable. One by one, doors that had always welcomed me slammed shut in my face. I became a ghost, erased not just from my family but from the entire social world that had once defined me. Eventually, I did what desperate people do when they've lost everything. I fled. I moved to another city, took a job in hospitality management, changed my phone number, and learned to build a quiet, independent life. I disappeared from social media, rarely mentioned my last name, and tried to create a new identity from the ashes of the old. But even as I rebuilt myself, deep in my heart, I clung to a small, foolish hope. Hope that someday, someone from my past would reach out, ask if I was okay, tell me it had all been a terrible misunderstanding. That day never arrived. Instead, something far worse happened. Last spring, I tried accessing my old email account, but kept getting error messages. When I finally spoke with customer support, the representative sounded uncomfortable as he explained, "I'm sorry, Ms. Harmon, but this account has been permanently deactivated following a verified report of user decease." My name had been officially marked as dead in their system, legally, digitally, completely. They hadn't just disowned me. They had systematically erased me from existence. I couldn't sleep that night, my mind racing with terrifying questions. The live stream played on endless loop in my thoughts, their rehearsed voices, their theatrical grief, my smiling portraits surrounded by flowers I'd never smelled. My own memorial service, conducted while I was very much alive. Something was deeply, disturbingly wrong. So I started investigating. First, I called my mother's older sister, Margaret Collins. We hadn't spoken in years, but she used to secretly slip me extra dessert at family gatherings when my mother wasn't looking. She answered on the second ring. "Hello, Margaret, it's Eliza," I said. There was a sharp intake of breath, then silence, followed by a decisive click. She'd hung up. I called again immediately. Blocked. Next, I tried reaching several cousins. One sent a shocked emoji and never responded to my follow-up messages. Another replied only with a "Is this some kind of disturbed prank?" No one believed I was actually me. Except one person, Tyler Webb, my childhood friend whose family had lived next door for years. He texted back cautiously, "Eliza? Are you really alive?" "Yes, I'm alive and well. I need to understand what's happening. What did my family tell everyone about me?" I asked. The typing indicator blinked for what felt like an eternity. Then he replied, "They told everyone you died in a car accident in Europe 3 years ago." My stomach twisted violently. He said, "They had this whole detailed story. Said it happened while you were backpacking after your breakdown, that your body was too damaged to transport home. They held a memorial service. Said you were cremated overseas." I nearly dropped my phone in shock. There had never been any car crash. I'd never even left the country. Something inside me finally snapped. I gathered every document I possessed, employment records, rent payments, tax filings, medical visits. Indisputable proof I had never been in any accident. I had never disappeared. I checked the Public Records Office online database, and there it was in cold, official text, "Eliza Harmon, date of death July 16th, cause, vehicular accident foreign, status, deceased, certificate ID, ARF 91327. They had actually forged my death certificate. They had made me legally dead. I stared at the screen, my body frozen but my mind racing wildly. This wasn't grief or denial clouding my judgment. This was a deliberate cover-up. But what were my parents hiding that was worth the elaborate charade of burying their eldest daughter while she was still breathing? I should have stopped digging, but the compulsion to know the truth burned too intensely in my chest. Once you discover your own family legally buried you while you were still breathing, you need to understand why. I found my answer in a place I hadn't visited in years, Vanessa's wedding website. She had created an elaborate online showcase, and there it was, a stunning digital gallery of opulence. White roses cascading from crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains glowing under custom lighting, a diamond engagement ring that caught the light like a miniature star. Vanessa's fairy tale wedding, apparently the social event of the season. Everyone from our world was there, smiling in professional photographs. My aunt, Margaret, beaming proudly like she hadn't hung up on me days earlier. My cousins raising crystal flutes and countless toasts. Even great-uncle, William, who lived in Europe and never attended family functions, had flown in for the occasion. But there was no mention of me. Not one reference, not a single empty chair, not even a hollow "wish Eliza could have been here" caption anywhere on the site. I was completely gone, erased as though I had never existed in the Harmon family narrative. Until I looked closer at the professional photographs. In one image taken during the reception dinner, there was a speech happening, an emotional toast. Vanessa's new husband stood smiling beside his bride, and next to him was my father, Richard Harmon, holding an expensive wine glass, speaking passionately into a microphone with tears glistening in his eyes. The caption beneath read, "To the one daughter who has always made us proud." And there it was, the ultimate betrayal. I wasn't just forgotten. I had been completely replaced. My curiosity now turning to determination, I searched through the state business registry records. A few clicks and my entire body went cold with shock. The trust fund my grandparents had established for me years ago, college funds, business startup capital, future investment income, had been legally transferred to Vanessa exactly 6 months after my death. All done properly, officially, quietly. She hadn't mourned her sister. She had directly profited from my erasure. I stared at her smiling face on the screen, the designer white gown catching the sunset light in the professional photos, and the truth hit me with crushing force. My sister hadn't just replaced me in the family. She had methodically erased my existence to claim what was rightfully mine. Enough was enough. If the Harmons wanted me legally dead, they were about to witness just how spectacularly alive I actually was. The following morning, I walked confidently into a downtown law office with a thick folder of documents and rage burning in my chest. Employment contracts, tax filings, bank statements, lease agreements, medical record. Those are indisputable proof of my continued existence. The young attorney across the polished desk, Daniel Morrison, looked absolutely stunned as he reviewed my case. "You're actually challenging your own death certificate?" he asked. I slid the forged document across his desk, my fingers trembling with barely controlled emotion. "I'm not dead, Mr. Morrison, but I fully intend to haunt them," I said to him. He blinked rapidly, then nodded with growing understanding. "Then we'll start with filing a fraud complaint and a motion to revoke the declaration of death. It'll take some time to navigate the legal process, but technically," he said. "I don't have time," I interrupted, leaning forward. "Because apparently I have a memorial charity gala this Sunday," I added. He looked up sharply, clearly surprised. I didn't flinch or look away. Earlier that morning, a message had appeared from an unknown number. Just one cryptic line: "They're launching the Eliza Harmon Memorial Scholarship at the Westbrook Hotel this Sunday." No signature, no explanation. But I knew the venue. I knew exactly where it was. The event was real, and so was my determination to attend. I stood at my apartment window that night, watching the city lights spread out below me like glittering embers waiting for a spark. They had wrapped me in lies, buried me in silence, pretended I had never existed except as a tragic backstory. But now, finally, I had the perfect stage for my return. Let them grieve so publicly. Let them shed their practiced tears. Let them perform their elaborate charade of loss. And when their theatrical curtain reaches its highest point, I'll step into the spotlight and give them a memorial event they'll never forget. The Westbrook Hotel's grand ballroom had never looked so elegant or crowded. Luxury cars lined the circular driveway like a procession of wealth masquerading as grief. The massive gold doors stood open just long enough to admit each group of guests dressed in designer black, murmuring sympathetically, embracing each other as if personal tragedy had touched their perfectly manicured lives. I watched from behind a marble column in the lobby. Black coat, dark sunglasses, still completely invisible to their self-absorbed world. My heart hammered against my ribs with a strange mixture of fury and vindication. It felt utterly surreal, like watching actors perform in a play about someone who resembled me but wasn't actually me at all. Inside the ballroom, the carefully orchestrated performance had begun. A string quartet played something appropriately melancholic. Soft lighting illuminated my portrait, the same professional headshot they'd used in the fake obituary notice. I remembered the day that photo was taken for the company website. I had been genuinely smiling, believing I had a secure place in both the family and the business. My father stood at the podium, his expression solemn, his voice perfectly modulated to carry just the right note of dignified sorrow. Eliza was troubled, but we loved her deeply. She lost her way in life, and though we couldn't ultimately save her, we never stopped hoping she would find her path back to us. My mother sat in the front row, dabbing at dry eyes with a monogrammed silk handkerchief as if she'd rehearsed the motion for weeks. Her quiet sobs were perfectly timed, exquisitely controlled. And Vanessa? She approached the microphone next, fingers clutching her pearls as if they were all that kept her composed. My sister Eliza was complicated, but she was my only sister. I wish I could have said one last time. A carefully crafted lie delivered with a precisely timed tear, wrapped in practiced sincerity. I moved closer to the ballroom entrance, just near enough to hear the minister raise his hand and intone solemnly, "May she rest in eternal peace." I exhaled slowly, my breath shaking with emotion. Not quite yet. The production was still unfolding, but the true star hadn't made her entrance. "Let us all stand for a moment of respectful silence," the minister's voice resonated through the ballroom like the final note before a crescendo. Everyone rose obediently to their feet, heads bowed, eyes closed, hands clasped decorously over hearts. And in that perfect, breathless moment of silence, I pushed open the heavy doors. The sound was crisp, deliberate, two massive doors sweeping open like the dramatic reveal in a theatrical production. The bright light from the lobby chandelier streamed into the dimmed ballroom, creating a path of illumination down the center aisle, and I stepped directly into it. Slowly. Deliberately. Each strike of my heels against the marble floor echoed like a countdown. Click. 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 The silence fractured instantly. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A few heads turned first, then more. Whispers spread like wildfire through the gathering. "Is that? It can't possibly be." A child's voice cut through the growing murmurs, "Mommy, isn't that the lady from the picture?" I removed my sunglasses with steady hands. Eyes locked with mine, wide with shock, disbelief, and unmistakable fear. My mother's perfectly composed face drained of all color. Her lips trembled dramatically, then she collapsed backwards, a perfectly executed theatrical feint. Her body crumpled into her chair as if she'd practiced the move repeatedly. My father's mouth fell open, his crystal champagne flute slipping from his fingers. It shattered against the marble floor, the sound like breaking ice. "Vanessa." Vanessa locked eyes with me and froze completely. Her jaw clenched tight, her manicured fingers twisting her pearl necklace so hard I thought it might break. A half-full champagne glass tumbled from her other hand, splashing expensive bubbly across her designer shoes. The minister, utterly stunned, took several steps backward from the podium. I continued walking forward steadily. Every eye in the room followed my movement, expressions showing they weren't quite sure whether they were seeing a ghost or the physical embodiment of their guilt. Perhaps I was both. I didn't speak a single word. I didn't need to. My living, breathing presence was the thunderclap following their elaborate lie, the consequence they had never imagined would materialize. By the time I reached the front of the ballroom, the entire gathering was collectively holding its breath. I turned slowly to face them all, and allowed myself a small, knowing smile. Let the moment of truth finally begin. I stood at the front of the ballroom directly beneath my own portrait, the very same photograph they had used to eulogize me, to symbolically bury me. I turned slowly to face the stunned crowd, dozens of wide eyes staring at me as if I had literally risen from the grave. Good. Let them stare. Let them see me breathing, alive, undeniable. I cleared my throat once, the small sound magnified in the shocked silence, and spoke with calm determination. "I understand I died tragically, but I'm here tonight to correct that particular narrative." A visible ripple of shock moved through the gathering. No one dared move. Several guests had cell phones in their hands but seemed to forget their existence, too stunned even to record this unprecedented moment. There was no accident, no tragic car crash in Europe, no closed casket because the remains were allegedly too damaged for viewing. I pulled a leather portfolio from my coat, thick, official-looking, filled with documentation bearing government stamps and international seals. These are my employment contracts, my tax filings, my bank statements, my apartment lease, my medical records, I said. I've been alive all this time. I've been working. I've been building a new life, I continued. The only thing I actually lost was my family. I turned deliberately toward my parents, locking eyes with them as they shrank visibly under my gaze. They told everyone I had died, falsified official documents, filed a fraudulent death certificate, and once I was legally deceased. I shifted my focus to Vanessa, who stood paralyzed, her knuckles white around her twisted pearl necklace. They transferred everything that was rightfully mine to her. My trust fund, my inheritance, even my grandmother's jewelry collection. They gave her my entire life. Vanessa's lips parted, attempting to form words. I silenced her with a single raised hand. I particularly hope you haven't grown too attached to that Riverside Heights mansion you purchased using my inheritance money, I said. A murmur spread through the crowd like approaching thunder. Someone whispered loudly, "She has actual documentation." Another person gasped audibly, and then a phone finally lifted, its recording light blinking red. Several more phones followed instantly. Perfect. Let the entire social world witness this memorial service for what it truly was. This was not a celebration of a life, but the cover-up of a calculated erasure. You didn't lose a daughter, I stated, holding my father's gaze without flinching. You deliberately discarded me. And now you get to watch me walk right back into existence, I added. The carefully constructed lies were crumbling to ash, and I had simply struck the match. I turned to survey the room one final time. My father's face had lost all color, my mother trembling uncontrollably in her chair. Vanessa stood empty, defeated, her pearls now hanging limply around her neck. You buried me alive to protect yourselves and your reputation, I said, my voice carrying effortlessly through the silent room. But I've returned to haunt you with something far more dangerous than any ghost, the absolute truth. No more angry words needed. No more accusations necessary. Just silence. Heavy. Final. As I walked calmly toward the exit, the hotel's clock tower began to chime the hour. How perfectly appropriate, a bell tolling to mark a significant ending. But this time, not for me. I handed the thick stack of documents to Daniel Morrison, my attorney, and signed my name with steady determination on the final affidavit page. I watched with profound satisfaction as he ceremoniously tore my fraudulent death certificate in half. My legal resurrection was now official, documented, and irrefutable. An extensive investigation had been opened into multiple serious charges including fraud, false reporting, forgery of government documents, and embezzlement of trust funds. Let the Harmon family try to spin their lies now, with state investigators combing through every financial record. Sometimes you have to completely die in someone else's carefully constructed reality before you can truly be reborn into your authentic self. And this time, I wasn't returning to their world seeking anything resembling forgiveness or reconciliation. I was coming back solely to reclaim my freedom and the life that had always been rightfully mine.